Have you ever felt like something is watching you when you're alone? Not from the shadows, but somewhere closer. Maybe the corner of your eye, or worse, your own reflection. This is a story about a mirror. Not just any mirror, but one that shouldn't exist. Danielle Marsh was an ordinary person, grounded in reason and practicality. Curses and haunted objects belonged in stories, not in her world. When she spotted a gilded mirror at a yard sale, she saw only its vintage charm and thought it would make a lovely addition to her bathroom. The seller, an elderly woman with trembling hands, seemed oddly desperate to part with it. She offered it for $20, pressing the mirror into Danielle's arms with unsettling urgency. Her voice, barely above a whisper, carried a strange warning: not to look too long. Danielle dismissed it with a laugh, brushing off the unease like dust from the frame. The mirror looked ordinary enough. The tarnished frame gave it a vintage charm, and the glass had a strange, almost hypnotic shimmer to it. It wasn't until Danielle hung it up that she noticed something was wrong. The first time it happened, she was brushing her teeth. Her reflection lingered a bit too long after she turned away, just for a moment, long enough to make her pause, but short enough to convince herself it was her imagination. By the third night, it wasn't just lingering, it was smiling. Danielle stared at herself in the mirror, her toothbrush frozen mid-air. Her reflection didn't match her expression. It grinned, a slow, unnatural grin that stretched her face in ways no human should be able to. She backed away, her heart pounding, and threw a towel over the mirror. She didn't use it for days. But the mirror wasn't done. At night, Danielle heard tapping, faint, rhythmic taps, like fingernails on glass. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was the wind or the pipes, but deep down, she knew better. The whispers started soon after. They were soft, almost like a breeze carrying her name, but even though they were soft, they echoed loudly in her head. One night, the towel was gone. She didn't remember moving it. The mirror sat bare, its surface pristine. She swore it had been cracked. Her reflection stood there, motionless, staring back at her with hollow eyes. Then something shifted behind it. A shadow, human-shaped, moving just beneath the surface. Danielle fled the apartment, her fear so overwhelming that she couldn't bring herself to return for weeks. When she finally mustered the courage to go back and retrieve her belongings, she encountered the new tenant. They casually mentioned finding the mirror tucked away in the attic. There was something about it, they explained, something unsettling. They often felt as though someone or something was standing just behind them, lingering in the reflection. Danielle could no longer push the unease aside. The questions clawed at her mind, demanding answers. She threw herself into relentless research, combing through every corner of the internet for clues about strange, inexplicable mirrors. Her search led her to a forum thread buried in obscurity, its title chilling in its simplicity: The Velázquez Mirror. The mirror had a history. Harold Velázquez was a 19th century artisan who crafted mirrors so perfect they were said to capture the soul of anyone who looked too long. After his wife's death, Harold became obsessed with preserving her essence. Witnesses claimed to see her face in his largest mirror, moving as if alive. Then Harold began experimenting. He lured apprentices, clients, even strangers into his workshop, each vanishing without a trace. When the police raided the workshop, they found dozens of mirrors, each with faint shapes trapped within the glass. Harold's body was found slumped before the largest one, his wrists slit. The mirror was shattered, its shards buried deep underground. Or so they thought. But not all of the mirrors were destroyed. One survived, slipping through the cracks of time and oversight. That mirror, the most sinister of them all, became known as the Velázquez Mirror. Danielle's relentless research only deepened her fear, each discovery feeding a growing dread. Still, it wasn't until she returned to the attic that the full weight of the truth became clear. The mirror was there, propped against the wall, its surface gleaming with an almost unnatural sheen. Her body shook as she knelt before it, every nerve brimming with terror. The question slipped from her lips in a trembling whisper, her voice barely audible in the oppressive silence. What did it want from her? The surface rippled like water. Her reflection leaned forward, its mouth moving soundlessly. A hand pressed against the glass from the inside, the fingers pale and skeletal. Danielle felt her breath catch as the reflection mouthed, "Let me show you." Before she could scream, the hand yanked her in. Danielle awoke in a place that felt detached from reality, a hollow, gray expanse that stretched endlessly in every direction. The air was thick with silence, and the void was filled with fragmented reflections of her life, her childhood bedroom, the dim corners of her apartment, fleeting moments suspended like frozen smoke. She tried to speak, to call out, but the vast emptiness swallowed her voice entirely. Through the shifting haze, a figure emerged. It was him, Harold Velasquez. His gaunt form shimmered unnaturally, his hollow, sunken face illuminated by the faint glow of his burning orange eyes. He moved with an unsettling fluidity, each step distorting the space around him. There was no escape from his presence. Danielle turned instinctively, desperate to flee, but the void shifted with her movements, twisting and bending to keep her within its grasp. His voice echoed through the oppressive silence, whispering accusations that pierced her thoughts. She had opened the door, and now she had let him in. As she stumbled, the gray mist thickened, tangling around her limbs and dragging her down. Harold was upon her in an instant, kneeling beside her as though he had always been there. His face was impossibly close, his breath cold against her skin. His presence radiated malice as he leaned in, his voice a low, venomous hiss. There was no leaving this place, not unless she took his place. The realization hit her too late. Harold's hand reached for her face, his twisted smile the last thing she saw as her scream was consumed by the void. Weeks later, the mirror reappeared at another yard sale. Its frame was polished, its surface unblemished. A young woman stopped to admire it, tilting her head as if she saw something inside. She paid $10 and carried it home. When she hung it on her wall, she noticed something odd. Sometimes, when she wasn't looking directly at it, she thought she saw a woman inside. A woman with hollow eyes. In a grin. This story couldn't have happened without the lovely supporters you see on screen. If you enjoyed it and want more creepy tales, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to exclusive content, consider joining my Patreon. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Stay safe, and beware of the shadows.